so good to be with you today. And really, every time we connect, it's a day that I feel like I want to know you and share with you, or I don't come on Zoom. All right. So we've been talking about suffering and putting ourselves in self-imposed prisons. We've been talking about psychological suffering. What is the opposite of psychological suffering? Is acceptance of what is, not feeling like you agree. You don't need to agree. You might even disagree, and completely accept what is, like death. When you can accept death, that's a great teacher for life. So, and in the last video, we talked about free choice versus the isness of life. Or we had two little girls. One was the free choice girl. The other I'm calling the weather girl, because she didn't have words for it, but her family told her that life just happens, that there is an energy that's the quantum field. They didn't use that word, but it's bigger than any person, and it moves things around like the weather. Now, I'm guessing that what stops someone from the ease and grace of that point of view, because there's no personal blame there. You still take responsibility. You say, I'm sorry if you hurt someone's feelings, but you know deep down that that was part of what was being played out. But that doesn't mean you do it again. It just means that was that moment. You're then open to a new moment, because you're not limited to your creations. I know it's a little far out. Who do you think came up with this idea of we're in control of everything? Can't you see every generation loving that? Because we get pumped up. We control our destiny. We make things happen. It's true. The secret is true on the level of the world, on the level of ice cream, maybe even a car. Your mind has an influence on the game of life. But did you actually create yourself? Did you make yourself 6'2" or 5'4"? Did you birth yourself? Oh, your mother did? Oh, did she create herself? I mean, it really has limits. And because we can so-called manifest things, we've taken it, I think, maybe a little too far. And you just have to ask someone who's had tragedies, untoward things happen, and tell them they created that. And I know that there are psychospiritual programs that say you created your reality, but I believe what is really meant is not that you create the world, you create your experience of the world. So we can have awakenings that appear to change our mind, our minds, our feelings, our thoughts. But how do you know there wasn't another hand in that? And I don't mean to use a metaphor that sounds like another personal, like God is a person or the quantum field is personal. But the weather has, like if you're out in the rain, it feels like a direct sensation of the isness of life coming down on you, right? I love the image of the weather, so you'll hear it a lot, because I'm hoping there aren't too many people who are spending their time trying to control the weather, because that seems like it might lead to suffering. Maybe Native American people did that, but I think they were in collaboration with the great mother of the weather, with a kind of surrender to the will of life, to the divine. I think that was implied there, and they were trying their best to make their energies match the will of the divine. And for me, that's like passionate acceptance. But I'm not a Native American expert. And if you are, or if you are Native American, maybe you would correct me if it's not that way. And if you know of a people or a community that thrives and doesn't punish themselves with control, I'd like to hear about it. So what I hear is a lot of self-satisfaction, patting oneself on the back, patting the ego, if you will, when things go well, and then ripping oneself apart, pushing harder and harder when things do not go as you would have them go. Is there any space when you're trying to control things? Isn't there always more to do, more you could do, another way you could get something, another way you could give something? Does it ever stop? I know that when Melissa passed away, when life intervened in my suffering, yes, I was shaken, but even without that, I was stopped in my tracks. The messages of grief, denial, anger, depression, bargaining, shock. I leave acceptance out because acceptance seems not to be the natural consequence of those fighting feelings of what is. All of those are fighting and trying to control in your mind what happened with that death. Why did it happen? It shouldn't have happened. Bargaining, you know the whole picture. Suffering. They go round and round in the loops that we have talked about. Isn't that a version of trying to control what happened? Those feelings are exquisite suffering. I've been there. And I know that once I stepped outside, it should be different, which is stepping outside of control. I could breathe again. I could laugh again. I knew that I was free and that the only thing that had changed was that the separate self of Melissa was no longer here. But life doesn't end quantum physics tells us energy doesn't die, it just transforms. That's theory. But to me, it's hard to say how she's still here. It's not always her voice, and it's not her. It's something that's not separate, and it has allowed me to know that I and you are not separate. So I'm inviting you in with each of these videos to the oneness that is all of us. And we're participating in activities in life that are like weather, but they're changeable. But there's something that never dies. And that's the isness of life. You could call it oneness. Some people call it love. Some people call it a space when we connected to those two mothers. And I'm going to do a Sunday service for Jennifer Hadley called Spirit Sundays with Spirit. And I'll be doing those two mothers that I spoke of the other day. That if that moves you to join in, we'll be talking about some of these topics, not so much control, unless that happens to come up, but more about Melissa and the experience of letting go and receiving and giving, becoming truly the same, because there's no separate being controlling the giving and receiving. So I thank you for being here today, as always. Bye for now.